Hey guys, it's Victoria back with another spoiler-free movie reaction. And today's movie reaction will be on The Hunger Games, The Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes. Directed by Francis Lawrence, starring Tom Blythe, Rachel Ziegler, Hunter Schafer, Josh Andres Rivera, Jason Schwartzman, Peter Dinklage, and Viola Davis. Now, in case you didn't already know, this movie is a prequel to the Hunger Games series and is also based on a novel. And so today I decided to wear somewhat put together, a Hunger Games theme with this old-fashioned dress and corset I got on. Somewhat in the similar vein, not entirely, but similar vein to Rachel Ziegler's character, Lucy Gray. So I thought we'd do something a little different. So if you're watching this video right now, try to count down the many times I say hunger in this video, because this, after all, is a movie reaction about the Hunger Games. So I have an idea. If you're watching this and you haven't eaten yet, grab yourself something to eat, and every time I say something along the lines of hunger, Hunger Games, hungry, anything like that, take a bite of something, because I think that would be pretty fun to try out. Now, back to our movie reaction. So, the film is about the Hunger Games series villain, President Snow, before he became President Snow, and his relationship to District 12's songbird, Lucy Gray, in the midst of the 10th annual Hunger Games. Even if you haven't seen any or all of the Hunger Games films, I still think you could enjoy this film as is. But I highly recommend you see the original series before seeing this film to help fill in certain contextual information that could be important to know for this film. It helps to bridge some of the gaps. Either way, up to you. Me personally though, I say that different contexts and also varying significance of certain characters is what helps me get through a prequel film. So just saying. Now, as far as this movie being a prequel film to the original Hunger Games series, I think that it works, and I have seen many different types of prequel films, and some more interesting than others, while others fall flat with their trying to connect it back to the original. But I feel like with this movie, I felt like it was more profound. Yes, there were some Easter eggs in there, but at the same time, I felt that a majority of the connections that were being formed in this film really can connect back to the originals fairly naturally, in my opinion. Yeah, there were some areas where you're kind of like, wow, this came out of nowhere, or I felt like it came out of nowhere unless I'm missing something. While others, it's like, yeah, I can see how this got from point A to point B, and how it sort of gotten to a implosion on certain things that happen in the original series. Or so far. I'm gonna say so far, because I don't know if this movie is gonna have another one following behind it, but it's possible. And I'm not saying it's bad or good either way. I'm just saying if there is. So far, I think that this film does help make some connections very well. Oh my God, I just realized something, y'all. I just realized that the director of this Hunger Games, and also a majority of the other Hunger Games films, he didn't direct the first one, was Francis Lawrence, who was the same director of I Am Legend, of all things. And I'm just realizing that now, of all times. I'm like, why did I never realize that, or maybe I wasn't really looking, but now that I made those connections, I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because just from the visual styles of his films, or at least in I Am Legend and The Hunger Games, there feels like there's a similarity between them, and also the cinematography and certain camera angles that are used in Francis Lawrence films are similar. So that's a interesting fact right there, but also an embarrassing fact for me because I didn't realize that until now. 10 years ago, I would have said, wow, what a coincidence. But now I'm just like, how did I miss that? How did I not realize that? Y'all, I mean, I must have been off my game for a little bit when it came to knowing that information about films. But oh well, but now it makes sense because the visual aesthetics are very similar to me from both films. So are both the film series and I Am Legend. So now that definitely makes sense. So figure out something new every day, don't we? The story centers around Coriolanus Snow, played by Tom Blythe, who is trying to restore him and his family to their former wealth by becoming a mentor to a tribute in the Hunger Games. In the film, he is referred to by his nickname given to him by his cousin Tigress, Corio, which is very interesting name for him, but hey, he's young in this film, so it's only natural that he probably did have a nickname that people that were close to him referred to him as. And Lucy Gray, played by Rachel Ziegler, is the female tribute from District 12 that he is assigned to. She is known as the Songbird due to her reputation as a singer from her district, and is very much underestimated in the possibilities of her surviving and winning the Hunger Games. Now, let's just get down to my reaction towards this. So, as far as the story goes, I felt like the story was fairly solid for this film. And yes, it's not gonna go to how can I say, go through a huge range, like a decade or something of Coriolanus Snow's life, but it shows you where the seeds of evil started forming a bit in his character, but it is formed in a, how can I say, at a time where he is still trying to figure out which direction he really wants to go, whether he is going of the morality side or is choosing to go the way of which his father has always went, and just everyone at the Capitol is pretty much pushing him to go. And also it is made very clear what he hungers for in this film, which you will find out if you go see it. And that hunger is also what somewhat starts out what connects him to Lucy Gray, and how that also, with her hunger for what she is trying to do, helps her to connect to him. But as the film goes on, you'll start to see those parts of them start to change, and definitely with his character in some way. I found the story very interesting, and also the characters in the film I felt they're not characters that are supposed to be just stand-ins for the main protagonist and the other antagonists to interact with here and there. They feel like actual, like, for real characters, that they have their own journeys that they're going on, even though they're not the ones that we're focusing on, but they felt very realistic to me, and also didn't feel like they were just there for filler. And I haven't even mentioned Viola Davis and Peter Dinklage's characters in this film. Viola Davis plays Dr. Gall, and she is very much, you do not want to cross her character, but then again, what else is new when it comes to Viola Davis playing very intimidating characters, which somehow find a way to sneak their way into our hearts, kind of, where we kind of admire her characters, even if they are evil. And her character, I'll say, is somewhat, I feel like she was somewhat in the vein of a mad scientist. And it appears that I'm not the only one that thinks that, but she was a very interesting mad scientist, and she really is pushing hard for the Hunger Games to be more than just a novelty in the capital. She wants it to be something close to the Olympics in this film, where everyone will eventually watch and probably will just have to watch, because that's her goal. And when it comes to Peter Dinklage's character, Dean Casca Highbottom, he is definitely a interesting character himself. And when you find out his involvement with the Hunger Games and also how it came to be, and also that he had a relationship with Koryo's father at one point, it was, his character was very interesting and kind of, in a way, somewhat of a tragic character, in my opinion. But at the same time, he was just as much complicit. So it definitely gives off that vibe with that character. But I really thought that their performances were great in this film. Really, not just theirs, but also the other actors' performances. Tom Blythe as young Coriolanus Snow, I felt really did capture the youthfulness and ambition of that the character President Snow always had, but it's just starting out. He wasn't always who he would become to be in the original Hunger Games. At this point, his goal is mainly trying to keep helping to pay the bills and keep his family afloat, and somewhat keep the fact that he's kind of hiding behind his powerful name, Snow, because of him and his family's situation. And I felt like Tom really made you feel for his character, for a character that we already know is going to end up being a villain. And Rachel Zegler as Lucy Gray, I mean, if you know of Rachel Zegler, you've seen her in West Side Story and recently Shazam! Fury of the Gods, but the film didn't do so hot that I felt like her character was very interesting. I thought that her acting was pretty good in that film. In this film, she is playing a songbird, which is something that she is very good at, because her singing voice, I mean, just her singing in general is beautiful and very, you can listen to it. But in this film, it was like, for the character of Lucy, she had to develop a country accent for this character, and she even had to sing kind of in that country-like style of, if not Dolly Parton, something like Reba McEntire kind of thing. But I found that interesting. Some say they would find it a bit too forced, like she really was, how could I say, not faking it, but she was trying too hard. But I felt like it didn't really take away from her performances, really, not to me. I just felt like it just somewhat added onto it. And also the songs that she sings in the film, especially the one that if you are a Hunger Games fan, you know the song, The Hanging Tree. I felt like she really did a great job singing that song and bringing that song to life in a more tragic sense, that it was already somewhat of a tragic song when you really listen to it um in the Mockingjay Part 1, but in this film you really feel the tragedy behind that song when you hear her sing it. And also how it somewhat applies to Coriolanus and his situation that he's in this film. And then there's Josh Andres Rivera, who plays Sejanus, who is a classmate and friend to Corio. And he is very level-headed and grounded in reality, especially with what other districts are going through. He actually has came from the lower districts, but because the money that his father was able to procure through his work, he was able to live in the capital pretty much off of his father's wealth, and that's why he's there. But he is not oblivious to the pain and suffering that these districts go through, and he really wants to be of service to those that are suffering, unlike at the capital where it seems like they treat the lower districts, people from the lower districts, like they're sadly almost like animals in a way. Fun fact, Josh, he is actually the boyfriend to Rachel Ziegler, if you didn't already know that. And also he was in West Side Story alongside her as Chino while she was Maria. So that's a very interesting connection right there. I cannot end this movie reaction without talking about Jason Schwartzman as Lucky Flickerman, who is the predecessor and basically ancestor to Caesar Flickerman from the original Hunger Games. And he is the first host of these Hunger Games. So he pretty much is like a weatherman of some sort, but when it comes to hosting the Hunger Games, he is very much like, you know, how could you say, someone that's announcing a game and telling you what's going on within the game. And even though he can see what's going on just as much as anybody else, and there are some people that are sickened by what they're seeing, but for him, it's his job. That's his job. And so he brings on the comedy. Jason brings on the comedy as this character at some of the darkest points in the film, especially during the games, because you're already dealing with some heavy stuff when you see what's going on in the games. And so he kind of lightens the mood a bit by sort of doing his own funny spin on it and making it seem like, oh, yeah, this is just a game. It's no big deal. Oh, he's down. Oh, she got away. Or, oh, there they are, kind of thing. And so I found that very entertaining, while at the same time I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like, for real. You're acting like this is just nothing and people are getting hurt, stabbed, killed, or whatever, and you're just like, oh, well, that's part of the game. Now, I will say there are some moments in this film where it felt like songs were just being pushed in or crowbarred in to the film, while other moments they come up very naturally. So just letting you know that I felt like there were just some moments where it's like, did we really need that in this scene, or could it really have made a big difference if it wasn't in there? And also another thing that I can say I found interesting about this film is that it wasn't just about the Hunger Games. It was about just the lives of these people in different districts, like between living at the capital or living in the capital and how high class they are versus living in a lower district like District 12, where things are definitely different from the capital. It was interesting to see that take on it more so in this film than you would have seen in, like, yeah, you sort of saw that in the original Hunger Games, yes, but This, I felt it was in a more different way, where you see what kind of lives people live, what kind of jobs they had, versus where they, where their standing is, their financial standing, and everything in between. The cinematography was very well done, in my opinion. Like I said, one thing that I can say about Francis Lawrence, judging by the films that I've seen him do, is that he is pretty good with certain camera angles and things that he likes to use at certain points in the film or in his films, depending on how high, like, pressured something is, or even just like how strange things are happening, and he knows how to frame them in a way that makes you feel kind of like uneasy, or makes you feel kind of like, okay, I feel like something's gonna happen, I just don't know what exactly. And so I really felt like that was pretty good. At points where the mood was more on a happier note, you really have a more of a wider view of what's going on with the, camera shots, and also it feels more lighter, not so heavy as the scenes that involve, fighting or killing or running, or even just moments of like claustrophobic feel kind of thing. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have to give this movie, I give this movie an 8.9. I really enjoyed this film. Now, it's going to be different for everyone on what you're willing to put up with or watch when it comes to prequel films. Like I said, normally with prequels, it's always a hit or miss, but I personally felt like that this was a hit, and in a good way. And also, I feel like there might be some kind of follow-up to this one later on, but I don't know. We'll have to see as time goes on. But even if there isn't, I felt like this was a nice introduction to what it was like in the early version of the Hunger Games, and how these people lived in this world during that time after the rebellion that sort of started it all. And so, well, not started the Hunger Games, but started them in this realm of where things felt desolate, and things were going wrong, society was going wrong, and they had to get things back on track. In a way, it kind of reminds you of The Purge, or at least it made me think of The Purge, if nothing more, just in a more confined way, and between people that are chosen to be in The Purge. So it's not funny, but just saying. And also, there are moments where it feels like the violence is very, I won't say brutal, but it does sort of make you kind of moments, and you feel for some of the characters that you don't even know who they are, but you feel for what they're going through. And so there definitely are the feels in this film, and just the emotional aspect to it that still continues, that the original Hunger Games also had. So it's pretty much, you get it in this one too, just on a more darker level in the beginning stages of this Hunger Games craziness. And I felt that the acting in this film was pretty good. Felt like everybody pretty much brought their A game on with their characters that they played, especially with Tom Blythe and Rachel Ziegler, although I will admit it was kind of weird hearing the country accent, but if that was part of her character, then who am I to say that she was wrong? So, but her acting was still really good, and her singing phenomenal, or at least in my opinion, it was pretty good. And also the OG actors, of course, they always bring their A game on, and I felt like they did it in this film. And when I say the OGs, I'm talking about Viola Davis and Peter Dinklage. And hope to see Peter Dinklage in more stuff as time goes on, because he really is a brilliant actor. And you know, I don't have to speak for Viola. We all already know what kind of actor she is, and there's no denying it. And as far as the themes go in this film, definitely one of the main ones that have always been a part of the Hunger Games is to not lose your sense of morality, and to also, as much as we know that when it comes to love, it is not easy, and sometimes it goes through perils and ups and downs, and also to be careful about which path you choose to go down on, because sometimes you think that a certain path is the right one for you to go down on because it will offer you some sense of security or some sense of prosperity that comes with it. But at the same time, what are you sacrificing for it? What are you truly having to give up to have it? And also when it comes down to just what is the whole point of the Hunger Games, which I'm not saying a word about what's the point behind it. You'll just have to see the film if you're interested. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts on the movie, or any if you think that I missed anything that could have been important to add to this video, please leave it in the comment section down below. And also, if you have been eating while watching this video, please let me know what you guys were eating while watching this. And with every time that I said Hunger Games, which I really feel like I didn't say it too many times, I was trying, but I didn't want to go overboard and be like, hunger this, hungry that, Hunger Games, hunger this, hunger that, hungry hippos kind of thing. So sorry if it was not as much as it could have been, but who knows, maybe if another film of the Hunger Games comes out, maybe I'll try it again in a much better and more fun way. We'll see. Hope you all enjoyed this movie reaction, and my next movie reaction will be on Disney's Wish. So look forward to that video coming out very soon. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Oh, and until then, happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be forever in your favor. Okay, bye.